Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer of Z.T. Tasha's truly brilliant inquiry, The Inherited Throne. Today, we're going to be peeling back the layers of ancient history to reveal a profound mystery hidden right at the absolute center of Western wisdom. If you've ever looked at the origins of human civilization and just kind of felt like a crucial piece of the puzzle was totally missing, well, you're definitely in the right place.
We're going to kick things off with Tosha's cryptic opening thought. Every tradition inherits more than it knows. It perfectly sets the stage for our entire investigation today. We're going to look at what we've always been taught is the starting line of human achievement and discover that actually it might just be an inheritance from a completely forgotten world.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, Anomalies in the Stone. To figure this out, we need to look directly at the physical evidence. For centuries, we've been handed a very simple, very conventional answer to this massive question of who really built the pyramids. It's a story we all know, right? You probably heard it in grade school. They say it was the pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BCE. They tell us it was done by tens of thousands of laborers using basic copper tools, abrasive sand, and massive earthen ramps. But the thing is, when you test that story against the physical reality of the stones themselves, not to mention the absolute silence of ancient Egyptian texts on how these megaliths were actually built, the whole narrative just starts to crumble. And honestly, the tool marks are what really highlight the impossibility of that standard story. Just look at the difference. On one hand, you have the incredibly slow, irregular chatter marks of a copper saw from modern testing. But then you look at the actual tool marks measured by Flinders Petrie in Giza. The ancient feed rate is just vastly superior. We're talking perfectly parallel, uniform cuts plunging straight through hard quartz. Bronze Age copper tools literally cannot produce these marks. They'd wear away almost instantly. The marks we're seeing at Giza, they're actually consistent with high-speed modern machine drilling. It's crazy. Now, here is where things get genuinely mind-bending. Hold on to this highly specific, staggeringly precise number, 43,200. This isn't just some random figure pulled out of a hat. It is encoded directly into the Great Pyramid's very dimensions. Think about this math for a second. If you multiply the pyramid's height by 43,200, you get the Earth's polar radius with shocking accuracy. You multiply the perimeter by that exact same number, and you get the circumference of the Earth's equator. The conventional story insists that 4th Dynasty Egyptians had absolutely no idea what the size of the Earth was. And yet, this massive monument is a perfectly scaled-down mathematical model of our planet. So, moving on to Section 2, Echoes in the Clay. Because you see, this mathematically impossible precision isn't just carved into Egyptian stone. It echoes across the entire ancient world. Here is that exact same number again, 43,200. Only this time, we aren't looking at Egyptian granite. We're looking at clay, hundreds of miles away in Mesopotamia. The ancient Sumerian King List explicitly states that King Enmenluana ruled for exactly 43,200 years before a massive flood destroyed the world. Think about the implications there. The exact same incredibly specific number encoded into the Great Pyramid's dimensions is used by the Sumerians to describe the world before the Great Flood. Which leads us directly into Section 3, the Lost Civilization. Seriously, how did two entirely distinct early civilizations, emerging in completely different river valleys, share the exact same impossible mathematical blueprint? Well, look at the historical pattern here. Around 9700 BCE, the Ice Age ends with cataclysmic sea level rise. Then, almost immediately, incredibly advanced sites like Göbekli Tepe are built by supposed hunter-gatherers. Later, the Nabta Playa calendar circle pops up, and then right around 3200 BCE, writing and complex megalithic architecture just suddenly appear, completely fully formed in both Sumer and Egypt. Tosha suggests this shared knowledge actually came from a lost Ice Age civilization that was destroyed by that 9700 BCE cataclysm. And that brings us to a really powerful realization. We are not the beginning. We are the survivors. The sudden, explosive appearance of advanced engineering and math in places like Egypt and Sumer, it wasn't a gradual, slow development over thousands of years. It was the fragmented inheritance of a totally destroyed world, carried by survivors who scattered to new lands. Let's look at how this survived in Section 4, Transmitting the Wisdom.
So how exactly did this antediluvian wisdom make its way into the foundation of modern Western thought? Let's track the actual chain of transmission. This profound knowledge didn't just fade away. It was fiercely guarded by Egyptian priests in temples at Sais and Memphis. In fact, the Greek philosopher Pythagoras spent 22 years being initiated into these Egyptian temples. He then took that intense mathematical and spiritual wisdom back to Greece, where it was eventually inherited and recorded by Plato, literally forming the bedrock of Western philosophy as we know it. Plato even recorded a really fascinating conversation between his ancestor Solon and those Egyptian priests at Sais. The priests actually told Solon about a great, highly advanced civilization that was wiped out by a flood exactly 9,000 years prior to their meeting. And if you do the math on that, it perfectly aligns with the geological end of the Ice Age around 9700 BCE. So yeah, the Egyptians literally kept the receipts. And sitting right at the absolute center of this preserved wisdom is this enigmatic figure, Hermes Trismegistus. In the Hermetic tradition, he's known as the primordial sage. He's the true originator of this ancient wisdom. Tradition says he received knowledge directly from the divine mind, and crucially, he raised two enormous pillars of knowledge specifically to ensure this wisdom would survive the coming great flood. He is the ultimate Hierophant, the true originator. Which brings us to the climax of this whole story, Section 5, the Great Switch. To really grasp the ultimate twist of this explainer, we have to talk about a concept called anachronism. Basically, it's a chronological inconsistency. It's when you place a much later figure in the position of an earlier figure, elevating the person who inherited the knowledge above the person who actually originated it. And over the centuries, esoteric groups, like the Freemasons, committed a massive anachronism. They took the original Egyptian sage, Hermes, and swapped him out for a biblical figure who lived much later. On one side, you have Hermes Trismegistus from the antediluvian era, the ultimate originator. On the other side, you have King Solomon, a Hebrew king from the 10th century BCE. Over time, the tradition placed King Solomon between the pillars of wisdom. They effectively swapped out the ancient divine sage for a late-stage human king who simply inherited those architectural blueprints thousands of years later. Think about what we actually lost in that monumental switch. Just follow along with me here. The central figure went from Hermes to Solomon, but look closely at the role and focus. The entire tradition shifted from the spiritual authority and divine wisdom of a priest over to the political power and governance of a king. Even the pillars themselves changed. They went from the ancient pillars of Hermes to Jachin and Boaz of Solomon's temple. We completely lost the connection to our deep, primordial origin. And this brings us right to the core thesis of Tosha's work, the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the one who has actually completed the initiatic journey and can guide others. Tosha argues, and I think quite beautifully, that the seat opposite the pillars of wisdom belongs to the Hierophant. It belongs to the true sage who originated the journey, not the king who simply inherited the remnants of the blueprints. The inheritor was remembered as the source. It is time to restore the Hierophant to the seat that belongs to the origin. By mistaking the inheritor for the source, our entire civilization kind of forgot its true roots. This text isn't just a historical analysis, it's a really powerful call to remember the ancient lineage that completely predates our recorded history. All of which leaves us with this haunting, incredible question. What else has our civilization inherited without knowing its true origin? If the very foundations of our mathematics, our engineering, and our esoteric wisdom are just echoes of a lost world, it invites us to look much closer at the foundation of everything we think we know. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep looking closely, and I'll catch you in the next one.